This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 71.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba. Guess what? Today is Ramsey's 35th birthday. Please join me in wishing Ramsey a happy birthday. Also, if you haven't done so already, visit wethesalesengineers.com to subscribe to Ramsey's newsletter, and let's help him reach his goal of 1,000 subscribers. Hope you enjoy the show.
Hello, SE Nation. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend and are ready for the new week. So as I was writing this intro, which don't be surprised, yes, I do write, a thought popped into my head. It's Monday. At least I publish this every Monday. I don't know when you're listening. But if you are listening on Monday, I am very curious about what is the first thing you guys do when you step into the office, whether it's like a coffee shop, your actual office, home office, WeWork, whatever it is. Do you answer emails? Do you plan out your week? Do you do push-ups? What is the first thing that you do when you get to the office? And leave a comment in the show notes at wethesalesengineers.com/show71, which is incidentally where all the information for this show will be. I had a great guest today, and he goes by the name of Chad Peterson. I'm not sure why I said he goes by. That is his name. And I would love to give you his background, but seeing as how he does it in just a second, and he does it way better than I will ever do it, let's jump into the show. Good afternoon, Chad. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm doing well. How about you?
You know, it's a Monday morning here where we're at now, or early Monday afternoon. And so you always know how things goes. Mondays are just packed with meetings. So my brain's going about 1,000 miles an hour right now.
Okay. I'm actually the opposite. Mondays are not packed with meetings for me because most of my customers don't want to see me. I found that out. They have their own meetings they want to attend, not with the sales people. Anyways, so how about you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Chad Peterson. I am currently a sales engineer for Okta Incorporated. We're an identity and access management company. You had one of my bosses on previously, Thomas Beiser. He was one of your guests. I also, before this, I worked at Citrix as a senior sales engineer there. I was there for 3 years. And before that, I owned my own reseller and managed service provider company for 22 years. So been doing this a long time.
So when you owned the reseller business, was it at the same time as doing something else, or? No,
it was my only career.
Okay.
We did that we got his, it's pretty funny because it's one of those, starting a business on accident. My wife and I were working for the same reseller here in Sacramento where I live. And we came into work one day and they had run into some issues and they were no longer in business anymore. They sold my computer off my desk and off we went. So here we were, both of us had just bought a house together and no job. And my customers called me up and said, hey, I know you're not there anymore, but my stuff's broke and you fixed it last time. Can you do it again? And I'm like, sure, I need to pay the rent or the mortgage. And it just grew from there. And we got as big as around 100 people and about as close to about $10 million a year in sales.
Wow. All right. So many questions.
Sure. Fire away.
So when you were working at the reseller before you owned your own reseller business, what was your role?
I was both sales engineer and sales rep. I kind of am a little bit of a mutant that I can wear both hats. I'm very comfortable in front of customers and been doing this quite a bit. And the technology comes to me very easily as far as learning new things and putting things together.
All right. And being, would you call that a technical account manager, technical sales engineer? What would you call it?
It was an account manager, account executive. My primary role there was I was a education consultant for Apple Computer. We had a exclusive contract with Apple and my reseller that it was at. That my job was to work with the K through 12 schools and the junior colleges in Sacramento and Yolo counties to help them facilitate the purchase of Apple computers. So my job was really to drive interest and do solution providing, so they could figure out how we could build labs or environments and basically drive interest in Macs, and at that time actually even Apple IIs at the time. So got to do a lot of that's where I really got introduced to being a hands-on sales engineer, as well as being the facilitator for all of the sales process.
What I heard from you as well is that after the business you worked for went out of business, they asked you to go in and fix things. So basically, post-sales led to some more pre-sales.
Correct. Well, see, my customers were calling me and saying, "Hey, my things are broke," so I was going to fix them. But then also they'd call me and say, "I'm moving to a new office," or "I want to put together this network." And when I first started, it was, "Sure, let's meet at CompUSA. And I'm really dating myself again there. Let's pick up all the pieces that you need for the project, and let's go put it together." So a lot of it was solutioning, where I was designing the infrastructure and the implementation, and then finding the hardware wherever we needed to get it. Well, it was pretty easy to understand that, hey, if I wanted to optimize my opportunities and have the ability to make as much profit as we could for our customers and for myself and help them out and get things easier, we ended up starting doing resale too. So opening up the accounts with the Ingram Micros and the Tech Datas and all the places to get the items.
Were you the only account manager at that company before you opened your own?
No. That company was 300 people, 400 people. So it was pretty large. It was 4 locations.
So what made all your customers call you, not somebody else?
Well, I fixed it for them. They trusted me. Remember, we all go back to that trusted advisor role that we tried to establish so hard when we were as a sales engineer.
Yep.
I was pretty successful in establishing that with my customers. They knew I would tell them honestly what they need to do and give them the best advice to solve their problem they had. And I have a way when I'm talking to them to use terms that are not too techy, but get them to understand what they need to do. Talk about it in real business terms.
So things that they can understand, like things
basically
that
bring it down.
them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really good analogies and figuring out how to explain it to them without having to get into speeds and feeds and to too much technical jargon, so to speak.
Okay. So, and then you became your own boss. You opened your own business reselling.
Yes.
How was that different from being an account manager?
Well, that's one of the things. It's kind of a double-edged sword owning your own company, because too often when you first get started, it's very similar. There's not a lot of difference because you're spending so much time just reacting and finishing or completing the tasks and the projects. There's actually a really good book by a guy named Michael Gerber called E-Myth Revisited.
Yep.
And I don't know if you've ever read it, but he talks about, it's the entrepreneurial myth, and it's about the creation of small business in America, where a trade person like myself hangs up a sign, we start doing the things ourselves, we're good at what we do. And so that evolution, you do have a really great first year or early growth phase where you're successful because you're controlling every piece of it. You're doing all of it together. But as you get to a certain point, you have to you only have so many hours in the day. So you have to either replicate yourself or start delegating authentic tasks.
Yep.
And so he talks about that's where things break down usually, because most people don't understand how that delegation is supposed to happen. They just start giving tasks away and lose the control that they made them successful in the first part.
Yeah, he keeps talking about work on your business, not in your business.
Bingo. Yeah. My favorite quote is in saying, by having strong processes, you can get extraordinary results with ordinary people.
Nice. All right. Has any of that translated to being an SE?
Yeah. Well, in two forms. One, by owning my own company, I understand I've been and walked in the shoes of a lot of my customers through all of their different steps. So I understand the big picture. I'm not focused completely on just my role or my product line. I understand where they're putting it in the infrastructure. And as we work and we do our jobs, we understand that there's so many right ways to do something, and not all of them happen to be right in our sweet spot. We do something really well at my current company, and at Citrix we did something really well. But understanding what the complete picture is a benefit to our customers, and they love it.
Are you still working within the same customer environment, or did that customer base change?
It's changed across. 22 years. I've been doing this 26 years. So there's been a lot of evolution, and we do a lot. in Sacramento. We're the capital of California, and so it's one of the 6 largest economies in the world. And so we do a lot of business with the state across all 3 of my careers that I've had, or all roles that I've had in my career. So it's been a lot of working with state agencies and state and local government accounts.
Did the needs of your old customers, were they similar to the needs of the new customers?
Yeah, there's been, there's gaps in different sizes. I've worked with everything from small companies that, 10 users and below, all the way up to, huge enterprises like AT&T Wireless and state of California.
And how did you dig into their needs if their needs are not as similar?
Well, I think it boils down for me is they're all we're all doing the same thing. It's just on different scales. We're, as technologists, our job is to identify the person and deliver them the tools and the data they need to do their jobs. And so just what tool sets we used and how much management we need of those capabilities really determines what the solution we're providing.
All right. And you've been doing that for 26 years.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I talked to a lot of folks who've been doing this for a while, and it seems that the SE role has changed quite a bit from way back then till now. It used to be do whatever, go help the customer, be on site, and then call the sales guy for a quote or whatever. Correct. Now, I feel like it's changing, at least in my perspective. What do you see has changed in 26 years?
I'd agree with you. I think the SE role is taking on that people forget that our title is sales engineer. And so I think the sales is becoming bigger and bigger in our role, where it used to be where we were doing a lot of solutioning and technical architectures and even POCs, where now I think it's more where we're doing demos and presentations, and we're still doing POCs, but everything being that it's like my company is completely cloud oriented now. We do most of those POCs remotely, where I used to be on site for weeks at a time, setting up things, doing implementation, racking and building servers and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know companies like Nokia and Cisco who still work with routers.
Yeah.
They still have to do that, but there's an entirely different team. There's a demo and POC team that's different from the SE team.
I can see that.
Because they want the SE out there meeting new customers versus sitting behind a desk and working on a demo, although that's the fun part of being an SE.
I can see that completely.
Yeah. So you do a lot of demos right now, it seems.
Yes, sir.
All right. So could you I'm not familiar with Okta. This is not paid sponsorship or anything. I just want to know what you guys do exactly.
We're an identity and access management company. So when our founders, we were founded in 2009, and they really saw the need that people are not having a problem with a single identity. It's really we're running into where we have multiple identities and trying to bring all those identities together. Because now as we're moving more towards microservices and service-based solutions like DocuSign and Box and Salesforce and AWS and Office 365, where we have all those identities that people need to get access to. They saw the need to have an identity layer where that all identity can be tied into one company. So we handle all that identity, whether that's internal your own internal users and accessing your solution, or whether that's customer facing. Some of our major customers are like Major League Baseball and MGM Grand, where they now completely outsource identity to the Okta Identity Engine. So it really is a way to increase security, make workflow better, make the customer experience better. Just really, it's so amazing. I've worked with a lot of software in my life. This is one of the best written softwares, and I know I'm working for it, so that sounds kind of funny. Yeah. But it was so easy during the implementation. And when we're working on stuff, now I know you're an SC. I can do a full POC with integrating Okta with Active Directory and 2 or 3 different applications in less than an hour. So it's just super easy to work with. We have over 6,500 applications tied into our Okta identity network. So it makes it really easy. All the plumbing's already laid. So it's a really easy button to bring applications together in a single place where we can log in and make that work easy for our end users.
And how long have you been working there?
About 100 days.
Okay. So the reason I'm asking all this is, like, I want to know what you guys do. And a lot of times when new technologies come out, the user or the buyer does not see the need or can visualize what he can use that for. Right. And I would like to know how you were able to get a customer who has no idea what Okta is to realizing that he needs it and actually ends up buying it.
Well, from where we're getting our most interest is really in the lifecycle management capabilities of it. So right now we have, when a new person starts in an organization, their record gets created in the human resource application. Yep. Let's say Workday. Now with Okta, we have an integration directly right into Workday where we can bring that user automatically into Workday and then look at those attributes inside of Workday as whether they're going to be a salesperson or a tech or a whatever role that they need to have, and we can automatically assign apps to them, whether that's going to be Active Directory, Office 365. The app list goes on and on. We have the ability to provision accounts in those cloud services and automatically set up their authentication form. So it's a single sign-on. Day one, they log in, and all their apps are there and ready to go. Nobody at the company actually go turn on applications or create accounts for them. It's all done through Lifecycle and inside of Okta. Where people are seeing this, they're being asked to do more and more with less staff, or also being stretched across multiple silos of information, whether that's going to be in AWS or different places. They need to, this automates that tool set so they can see now where identity becomes one of the services that they're asking, like every other thing they're doing. Where we're also seeing a lot of it is security is huge. We now can't look at security like we did in the old days where we had a protected environment that was, once you were inside your internal network, you were safe. That was the only biggest idea, was to save, protect the environment, kind of like we protect our houses where we lock all the doors and windows. Well, that doesn't work anymore because people want to work on their phones and their iPads inside Starbucks or on the airport or on the airplane. So we can't have a location-based security system. We have to basically look at a zero trust. Everybody has to authenticate all the time, no matter where they're coming from. So that makes it an easy way to do it.
There are reasons why people would want to use your software.
Correct.
The question is, if someone doesn't see that, how do you get them to actually see that? Like you explained it to me right now, and now I see, but I'm a little bit techie, so I understand this a little bit. But how would you go around getting that information? How would you convince them to actually do a demo?
Well, for me, the best success I have when I'm doing demos is using story. It's always been really success. The thing that I've always found is story resonates with everybody. If you give them a picture of a user's life or life cycle and how they would use the product and how it would affect their day-to-day use, couple things happen. One, it's our natural, as a humans, we automatically want to put ourselves in the role of a hero when we start hearing a story. So we see it in movies and we see it in everything else, but usually use those kind of capabilities where you're trying to tell them how this is going to make them either their life better, improve securities, or save them money. That's how you usually try and get them to buy in and paint that picture where they're either being, solving a problem that that they already have, or the way that they're making the life of their employees or their coworkers better.
How difficult it is not to make yourself the hero of that story?
Well, it's really easy because when you're telling a story, you're talking about someone who's already been successful. You're the narrator, so it's really easy to. Now, if you happen to be the one who also implemented it and did the project, then you would actually be putting yourself as the story, in the role of the hero. But when you're working on it, you're doing your presentations. This is one of the first things that I like to do when I start a new company. Is I want to hear about the success stories. I want to hear where people had a great experience and it did certain things for them. And then you borrow those stories until you have time to develop your own. And that's how you get people to buy in. There's also another great book called Death by Meeting. It's one, Patrick Lencioni, I believe is the author. He has a really great series of books where he writes everything as business fables. So they're fictional stories, but they tie back to strong business process and business insights. I love the way he writes. He's one of my favorite writers. But he talks about when you're like, he talks in this book is death by meeting, and why do people hate meetings so much, but they love movies and books? Well, it's because you have all the processes. You have to understand where you can get a buy-in. There has to be something you're trying to resolve. Too often we have meetings just to have meetings, but when you're doing your demos and your presentation, you have to have something you're trying to overcome, and you have to position itself as a flow. You have to have a beginning, build up to the problem or whatever the conflict is going to be, show them how they solve the problem and what the resolution is, and then show the happy ever after. And that's how things work well with me when I'm doing my demos.
So how did you learn that by accident? Did someone tell you about it? How did you come across this?
The biggest thing we had at Citrix, we had the folks from Pixar actually come out and do a presentation for us at one of our SC summits. And they talk about the power of story. It was a really great presentation because they also dig into some of the behind the scenes and some of my favorite movies of Toy Story, and all the Wall-E and things like that. But they also show you the elements of story building. There's also a really cool, I believe they have the same one as a TED Talk where you can look it up and watch the video of it. Where you can look at the elements of what's required to build story and how you can use those in your presentations and your demos to get people buy-in and get them invested in your what you're talking about.
Nice. I'm curious how they tied storytelling as Pixar into sales engineering, or did somebody from your management do that?
No, it was actually the guys from Pixar that were doing it. They're actually talking about the same thing we're talking about. When we're in a meeting, we have to go with the same goal. We have to go in and with the same ideas that what we're trying to progress. What is it we're trying to get out of this meeting? And whether that's going to be, we have to tell them and show them some kind of journey. And so that's when they do it, the same thing, they have their characters that they're taking through a journey. Excuse me. And we're doing the same thing when we as sales engineers, when we're doing presentations or demos, we're taking our customers through a journey, and that's going to be introducing Okta as a product, as a platform that they can work on, or whatever product we're trying to demo. We're talking about them as characters in the movie or story, and then how are they what problem do they have, then how are we solving it, and how do we get to their happy ever after.
Interesting. In the biggest thing that I find the SEs lack is time to practice or the motivation to practice. Is this something you practice, or do you just go and try it in front of a customer for the first time?
Practice is the only way to get good at something is to do it over and over again and practice it. We were talking before the thing about some of the other shows, and you had a gentleman on who talked about improv groups and being comfortable in front of it. I am part of an improv group, taking multiple improv classes. I also do some plays and get on form and perform on stage again. Improv teaches you to always accept whatever's given to you as far of it, so that you try never to say no when you're doing improv. So you start thinking about when you're doing your presentations and stuff, you can't script it because you can never tell what the customer's going to say. So you have to be able to think on your feet a little bit, but you want to have your story and your presentation outlined with it. And you can have certain things that you trigger in certain parts you talk about. Now, remember, when you're doing your presentations and your demos, the story doesn't have to be the same thing all the way through the presentation. You can talk about anecdotes about key points in it. Like, I had this customer that does this, and this is how they did it and why they did it, how they were successful and what they were happy with. Move on to the next part of the demo. We're now talking about MFA or whatever in my current role. Here's how a customer did it. Here's how they're successful, why they were happy, everything else. You start seeing those mini stories built into the main journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So is it like a bunch of stories that tie up into one big story in the end, or they could be separate stories?
I would think that actually you can even almost think of it as scenes. So when you have a movie, you break up your path or your journey into a bunch of scenes. So when you're doing your presentation, imagine the scenes that is moving you through to where you want to go.
So like I've read the books like Great Demo and Demonstrate to Win. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but a lot of them are like scripted. You have a flow of what you want to go through. And now you're talking about improv, which is kind of the opposite. not 100% the opposite because you have an outline. How do you merge the two?
Well, I think it's the improv part of it comes because you're going to get objections. I mean, we all know as customers go through, they're going to come up with questions or come up with things like that. So you need to be able to think on your feet and accept those role or those input to your story. When we get you too often, I don't know, you've seen people that are maybe new in the role that haven't done this a lot. They get locked in, they get tunnel vision, and they want to do their scripted demo. That doesn't always work. Or you're going to lose your customers because they're going to say, he's not listening to me. He's doing what he wants. It's fun. There's another book, Whiteboard Selling, where it talks about the problem that in our industry of PowerPoint, and where we have people that get locked into their PowerPoint slides and can't do anything and can't read or actually react to any of their demos or actually their product. I guess in the military, there's a term called PowerPoint smart. He's only smart enough on a subject to be able to read the slides. So,
yeah, I've had situations where we bring in a PM or someone, and they start doing a presentation, and we do a lot of speeds and feeds in my networking domain. So they're talking about 100 gig, and the customer would say, "Well, I don't really care about 100 gig. I care about like the 10 gig. It's like, okay, but this is part of my slide, so I'm just going to go through it. Like, dude, he just gave you permission to cut the meeting in like 15 minutes. Skip to the next part. So,
well, and we have to remember why we're here. We're here for the customers. Our job is to solve their problems, not to do our presentation, our demo to what makes us happy. We're here to solve their problems. So listen to them and take the feedback. That's where the improv comes in really important for me. I mean, it's been helpful in my career is to be willing to accept that input and accept that, that premise and go on to the next piece.
Nice. How long? So you've been doing improv for a while.
Yeah. Probably about 5 years.
Is there a local group that you joined, or is it?
Yeah. Well, there's multiple. I've taken classes and did some playing around with the folks at Comedy Sports. They're kind of a national chain of improv places. But I've also had a lot of success with meetup.com as a kind of a social place where you can meet new friends and new activities. There's improv groups there where you can do stuff with them also.
Okay. So you would recommend it for folks?
I highly recommend it. And then also it gets you comfortable being in front of people. As sales engineers, like our job is really presenting and standing in front of people, and you got to be able to share that and be able to comfortable doing that. Also, for me, my style is I'm like 90% cheerleader. I get pretty excited about the solutions, and my enthusiasm, I think, is contagious. And so I'm up there like going, this is so cool. I love this. This is awesome. Show this and do that. And energy is important. They've seen too many, like you were saying, the product manager that's going kablah, 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 and not listening and not being interactive and not talking to them. We're showmen. We're there to get them excited about our product and see, and also make them feel positive about implementing and working with us.
Right. So I have way too many questions about improv, but we'll leave that for a later date. When you went from being a business owner to an SE, have you ever thought about going back to account management or being a business owner again?
Owning your own business, it's a double-edged sword. There's so many things that are great about being a business owner. The problem is I love what I do as a sales engineer. I enjoy the technology. I love meeting the people. I love presenting. As a business owner, I didn't get to do that. I had to focus on all of those pieces, but also human resources things, insurance, workers' comp, flooring lines, partner relationships, customer complaints, all the different contracting vehicles. It become, like you said, with the E-Myth Revisited, I was spending more time working on my business and not getting to do the things that I enjoyed in my career, work as far as being a sales engineer, as a technologist.
So you would have preferred to work in your business instead of on your business, as opposed to what he recommends, working on your business instead of in your business. Interesting. Nice.
Well, maybe it would have been better if I could have found someone who I would have trusted and able to do all the things that I was doing on that side of it, and let me focus on the things that I enjoy. And maybe it's also the point where I'm at my career. We had a successful run. We built my house. At one time, I had my dad, my mom, my sister, my wife, all working for me. And so we had a great, 22 years is a long time as one part of a career. When it came time to be done, I was done doing all those other things, and I wanted to focus on the things that I enjoy.
So you worked with your family?
They worked, yeah. They all came to work for me.
A lot of people will call you like not in your right mind to hire your family.
Yeah, you're not the first one to say it, dude. I shared an office with my wife for 10 years. So not only were we working in the same company, we were in the same room. So it was, there's a lot of things to juggle. And I shared with you that I have 2 sons with autism. So crazy is not a stranger in my, in my world, and not definition. People have questioned my sanity many times about what I do. But I wouldn't trade my life. I love what I've got to do and my experiences I've had, and it's got me where I'm at.
So, question: do you mind if I dig a little bit deeper since
Please.
You opened it?
I'm an open book, man.
All right, man. Well, like you have quite demanding kids at home.
Correct.
And you're a sales engineer who may or may not travel, depending on the type of work that you do. Is sales engineering a good role to be able to have the ability to take care of your kids when you need to?
It gives me the flexibility because we work from home. We have the ability to bounce around a little bit. Also, being remote with most of our solutions now, I can do my demos or do my calls as I'm driving to school or taking them to a doctor's appointment or whatever we need to do. Also, we're pretty fortunate. We make pretty good money as sales engineers. We get both the technical side and everything else, but we also get the upside of the sales part of it. So it's I think it's a wonderful solution there. Also, I've been blessed to work with fantastic companies that understand my role, what's going on in my life, and what I have to do with my children. And they all believe in work-life balance. And if there's an emergency where I need to work with my children, they've all been very accepting and helping me out with that side of it too.
I do have to say, almost all the managers I've worked with in sales engineering kind of put family first. Like,
I agree.
Take care of your family, and then worry about work later, which has been amazing. So
yeah, and success really comes into it. If you're good at your job and you are successful with it, you get more freedoms with those successes. So if you can spend your time wisely, and find ways to be productive when you're doing multitasking. I mean, podcasts are a great thing. I've learned lots of stuff by listening to you as I drive down the freeway from meeting to meeting.
You mentioned last time you fell asleep while listening to my podcast, but that wasn't while driving.
That wasn't fair. That's no compliment to you. That was a 3:30 get up in the morning to get to the airport, 6 a.m. flight. So I don't know how much coffee I'd have to take to stay up for those.
But it's a good thing. Basically, I can help you get educated. I can also put you to sleep, depending on your needs. So
maybe it's a little learning. I'm learning while I'm sleeping. Who knows?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think it's time to transition to the not-so-fi round. You mentioned you've heard the podcast before. I don't know if you've fell asleep during that part. But it's basically 4 questions that I ask most of my guests, and we discuss based on your answers.
Sure.
All right. So what is the one thing you love about being a sales engineer?
I think the thing I love the most is it's an equal mix of to play with technology, but also to be able to be personable and meet people and work with new folks.
Good answer. All right. What is the one thing you would change about your job?
Account managers. No, just kidding. It's always a challenge because we have to drinking from the fire hose a lot of times, trying to not only having to understand your technology and what you're solving for, but also understanding where you fit in the ecostructure or the ecosystem of all the other technology and the infrastructure that's out there. You're working in networking. So how many different pieces do you touch, and how many different interactions or relationships do you touch when you put your solution in? With Okta, I touch so many different applications and have to know how we work with those applications. It's going to be a little overwhelming. And also setting expectations is really, helping that relationship with your sales and your account manager and your account executive is making sure that they understand that it's just not like wave a magic wand and things instantly show up in your demo center. That takes you. There's a lot of homework you have to do on the backside to make that magic work during demos.
I've told this story before, probably in a couple of episodes ago, where I had to demo a specific protocol for our customer, and my account manager came into me and said, "Hey, tomorrow you're demoing that." I'm like, I don't think so tomorrow. Like, that's a little tight. And I had a good relationship with the customer. We were just trying to upsell them some more stuff, or they needed more stuff and I wanted to sell them. So I went and met the customer, and I did a whole discovery. And it turns out it's not exactly what the customer was, what my sales guy was saying. And then I took half a day to prepare for a demo, which I think half a day is nothing.
No, that's quick. Cases.
And then I did the demo, and as we walked out, he's like, "Couldn't you have just done it that day? Like, it's a few clicks." I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I think that's what I would change. I would love for them to understand, maybe almost like walk on our shoes for a day or two, so they actually see all the groundwork that we have to do to make the magic happen during the demos. I got an email like, today's Monday, so it was probably like 10 o'clock last night, Sunday night, saying, "Oh, by the way, you're demoing the integration with this application." Well, we haven't worked with that one. I don't have access to it. It's another cloud app. I don't have accounts with it. We have some white papers and videos I can show, but nothing where I could actually do the integration or show it, especially 5 hours or 10 hours from demo time.
So how did you deal with that?
We did. I called him up on Monday, first thing Monday morning here, and said, "Hey, I don't have that demo. Here's what I have. How do you want to progress?" And that's the thing is, as you progress in your career, don't be afraid to say, "I don't know." People don't guess. People hate when you guess. It never works out well for you. It's better to say, "I'm not sure. Here's how I think it works." But the same thing goes with my account managers. I tell them straight up, "I don't have access to that. I don't know how to. We can't do that. Here's the choices I have: A, B, or C. Which one do you want?"
Yeah. Well, funny about choices. One time I was working like on 6-7 different POCs at different stages with different dollar value attached to it. Some might be 5K, some might be 500K. And I had them written all down on the board. And I called my sales guy over and said, "All right, I'm working on these 4. Which one's the priority so I can focus on that?" So I was giving him options, right? And I thought I was doing good. And he looks at me and he's like, "Well, Ramsey, they're all a priority." I'm like, oh, seriously? Like,
again, account manager is what I changed.
yeah. So I stopped asking that question. I started telling him, I think this is the priority, right? Let me work on this first. So I guess it changes with every account manager you work with.
And they all have different, I've had a lot of them that I've worked with and who have worked for me. And I think, again, that helps me with my experience that I've had being a business owner, that I've actually had the sales folks and the sales managers report to me, and I can understand some of the needs for Salesforce and some of the quota and forecasting stuff that they have to do.
Yeah, for Salesforce, I don't mind it. I actually love it because it keeps me organized. When I used to use it, so in my previous company, I used to use it more, and that's where I put in all my tasks that I had to do, which helped my sales guy, helped my manager, helped everybody. Now we don't use that, and I'm kind of using the calendar as a tool, but I don't mind using Salesforce. I think it's a good thing. Moving on.
Sure.
Is there a book or resource that every sales engineer should read?
Mastering Technical Sales by John Kerr. It's one of my favorites. E-Myth Revisited, again, we talked about that before, Michael Gerber.
Do you think SEs would benefit from the E-Myth Revisited?
I like it because it talks about process, and I think everything can be boiled down to a process, including your sales flows, understanding what triggers you have to do, and anything that we have to do more than once. I'm a big fan of automating. and I hate reinventing the wheel. So if I can find a way to make the sales process flow easier, and like you said, keep on track of stuff, if I can have some kind of way of reminding myself of what it needs to be, I think that's a benefit. And I think looking at that. Also, I like when he gets into stuff where, they start looking at what's successful and start building your demos around what works and what doesn't work. So maybe, one of the things I do with my sales folks after we do a demo is I say, okay, what did you like? What didn't you like? Kind of like what we were talking about when we were doing our podcast, here where we're talking about stuff. Give me some feedback on what I can do better. What pieces, what is there something I did better that worked? And then start tracking those so you can understand why you're successful and not just be successful.
Do you find
another?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, do you find account managers actually give you feedback?
Yeah.
Okay.
They do. And especially about demos, because everybody can be in attendance and and they see all your demos. And as I start changing my stories or tweak things here and there, I'll tell them straight up, I did this different. Did you like it better or not like it better? Again, limit the choices. Don't give them open things like, you ran into with your guy. Yeah. It works out really well because overall my job is to help them be successful. And then I'm successful in correlation. Yeah. So we're a team. We have to walk in this together. Another book that I really enjoyed is a book called Why We Buy by Paco Underhill. They run a company that looks and studies how people buying tendencies are, to the point where they'll follow them around in the store and monitor what their interactions are. She went to this aisle and this aisle, picked up 3 different ones, read the back of one, put one in her cart, walked off. Some of the things I was really surprised about was like when we're doing our presentations, words on a PowerPoint slide don't work because the way the human mind works, and this is what he talks about in the book, we only can process so many things during a time frame. Like he talks about walking from your car into the store. They say the average person can only bring in like 5 words. So any more words on a sign is a waste of space. Same thing when you're coming into the store. Anything in the first 10 feet of the store, people don't register yet. They almost need like a landing zone to get in. So it's ways, just understanding the purchasing mentality and why people actually make the idea to buy something.
Well, on that note, I went into Walmart for the, 100,000th time. And this time I had my kid, and we were struggling to get in the stroller or in the cart. And this is the first time I noticed that they actually have candy at the door.
Yeah, he says it's people make this mistake all the time where they don't understand what their buying process is.
What's more amazing is that my child hasn't noticed, because if he had, he would have asked for all of those. So
yeah, I think I'm more of a candy guy. My kids are.
Okay. Well, my kid is 3 years old, so.
Oh yeah, you got a fun time there.
Yeah, it's anything edible, he will eat it. All right. So, what do you do for fun?
Well, we talked about the improv and the drama and the acting, the theater. Also, dude, I'm a stereotypical geek. Love video games. Even still play a collectible card game that I've been playing for 20 years called Magic the Gathering. So, those are the things that I do for fun. I love the card game because it keeps my mind sharp. I have to try and solve puzzles solve problems on the fly. So that's really something that's really engaging for me. I'm also, I like to do a lot of athletics. I did a triathlon a few years ago, had a lot of fun with that. One of the best sports I could ever recommend to anybody who wants to get involved with something where community and relationships are important, because triathletes were the nicest people that I've ever worked with.
Interesting. I generally don't run unless someone is chasing me, which means I don't run much.
Yeah, the running's okay for me. I have to be really careful because I can hurt things now where I'm at in my age. The hard one for me was swimming, because I felt it was like a little isolated and trying to. It's so technique based, and so it's something that I had to really struggle with to get through.
Nice. Well, did you finish it?
Yeah,
awesome.
It was really fun.
Good.
And I got halfway through the cycle. I got an incredible bout of the giggles. And so it looked like a crazy man riding the bike down the street.
The cycle is the last thing, right?
No, it goes swim, cycle, run.
Okay. So you got, okay. All right. So did you run all giddy or?
No, because once you get to the point, but it's that realization, like, hey, I'm really doing this. I'm actually doing a triathlon. This is so flipping cool.
Nice. Because I would have had the different reactions. Like, I'm doing this. I'm doing a goddamn triathlon.
What the hell am I doing?
Yeah. No one told me about this.
Dude, I just watched and I'm way off track here. I know that, but I just watched a special on Netflix called Iron Cowboy. It's a triathlete who did 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states.
Is he still alive?
He not really. It didn't look like he was going to make it there, man. He was getting like IVs and falling asleep on the bike and everything else. It's an extreme guy, but he was doing it to raise money for childhood obesity, and I applaud him for having a passion and working and doing something.
Yeah, well, good for him. All right, man. Well, where can people learn more about you?
I'm on LinkedIn, linkedin.com, Chad M. Peterson. Also, I'm not a big social media guy, so I do some stuff on Twitter at ChadMP2000. But I'd love to, meet with more people and see how I can help.
All right. Well, thank you for your time today, Chad. I really appreciate it. And
thanks, Reb. It was really fun. Hopefully, didn't ramble on too much, and hopefully it helped out some people.
No, actually, you had the most concise answers I've had on the show. Usually,
fantastic.
They're longer, but either way, it's been perfect.
Oh, fantastic,
so,
dude!
Thanks,
I really had a good time, and if I can help in any way, I'd love to do more with it.
All right. Well, I will talk to you soon then.
All right, sounds good, bud.
Wait. All right, guys, we're done. That's the end of the show. So we always talk about like sharing stories with our customers to help them build a vision, and sometimes we don't have any stories if we're working on a new product or if we are new to the company, which Chad is. So at the time of the recording, Chad has been on the job for 100 days with this new company, Okta. And he didn't have too many stories, but what he had is colleagues that can help provide stories. And that's what I love about the SE community, is that we get together and we share stories with each other about what worked, what didn't work. So reach out to your colleagues. My experience, most colleagues are happy to help unless like you're not doing your job. So if you listen to this podcast and you care about your career, it probably means that you do the job well and you enjoy doing it. So reach out to people, get some help with stories, with techniques, whatever it is, and see how you can incorporate whatever you learn into your day-to-day life. So after my conversation with Chad, I watched the TEDx that he talked about, and I added the link to the show notes, so you can watch it if you want to. Show notes are at wethesalesengineers.com/show71. And without further, no, that's not what I say here. I say, with that, this is Ramsey signing off.